They said it wasn't your fault, but without presence and active listening, the truth stays buried, and the regret never leaves. Every word you hold back builds a wall of presence that makes your confidence untouchable, silence sharp, as a blade forces them to face themselves, and lets active listening quietly uncover what they hide. When you master presence, active listening, and confidence, you don't just control the conversation, you control how people see and remember you. Chapter 1. Tailoring your message. Speak to be understood, not to perform. Let me ask you something simple. When you speak, who are you really speaking to? Is it the listener in front of you, or the version of yourself you want them to admire? We all want to be seen as intelligent, articulate, composed, but somewhere along the way, we confuse connection with performance. We focus so much on speaking, well, that we forget the real point of communication, to be understood. And being understood doesn't always require sounding impressive. Sometimes it requires being vulnerable. Sometimes it means choosing clarity over cleverness. And almost always it means speaking to where the other person is, not from where your ego wants to be. The Stoics believed that words should be tools of truth, not decorations of pride. Epictetus said, "First, learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak." It sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things to practice, especially when we're tempted to prove ourselves. I want you to imagine this. You're in a conversation with someone who knows less than you on a topic. Maybe it's a younger colleague, or your child. Do you explain things clearly, or do you layer your words in complexity, hoping they'll see how knowledgeable you are? Now flip it. You're speaking to an expert. Do you over-explain to mask insecurity, or do you quietly offer substance without pretense? Adaptation is not manipulation, it's empathy. It's self-awareness in service of others. I once coached a man named Daniel, a brilliant tech lead. His ideas were gold, but every time he presented to upper management, he'd lose the room. He'd speak in jargon, get lost in details, and wonder, why don't they get it? I told him, you're not speaking to be understood. You're speaking to prove you're smart. But smart communication is when your message lands clean, clear, and remembered. So we worked on one simple shift. Speak the language of your listener, not to dumb things down, but to lift the conversation to a space where understanding is possible. Because in truth, communication isn't about you. It's about the bridge you're trying to build. The Stoics knew this well. They didn't believe in showing off with words. They valued measured speech, words chosen with care, not to impress, but to illuminate. And that starts with intention. Before you speak, ask yourself, who is this person? What do they care about? How can I make this easier for them to receive? Think of it like adjusting the brightness of a lamp. The bulb might be powerful, but if it's blinding, no one sees. Only when you adjust the intensity does the room become warm, visible, and welcoming. This doesn't mean you censor your truth. It means you honor your truth by delivering it in a way people can receive. Even science backs this up. Studies show that effective speakers mirror their audience's language patterns. They simplify when needed. They use analogies. They pause more often. And what happens? Trust increases, understanding improves, connection deepens. Tailoring your message doesn't mean being fake. It means being intentional. It's the difference between shouting in a crowd and leaning in. To speak gently into someone's world. That's what wise communication is. Not loud, not flashy, but precise, thoughtful, human. You don't need big words to say big things. You just need the right words delivered the right way to the right heart. And here's the most beautiful part. When you stop trying to impress, your presence becomes more impressive. When you let go of proving, you start connecting. And connection is what changes people, not performance. So next time you speak, pause. Not just to think, but to care, to adjust, to land your words with respect, clarity, and purpose. Because real mastery of speech isn't about making people say, wow, they're smart. It's about making them feel, they understand me, and I understand them. That's when your words don't just make noise, they make meaning. And here's the thing, you can know how to tailor your words, but if you don't practice it consistently, the skill fades. In Chapter 10, we'll talk about building confidence through consistent action, and why confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. Chapter 2. Building confidence through consistent action. Let's be honest, most people wait for confidence like it's a moment. Like one day they'll just wake up, feel strong, and finally do the thing they've been avoiding. But confidence doesn't come in moments. It's built in motion. It's not something you find. It's something you earn through small, deliberate steps, especially on the days when you don't feel ready. The Stoics believed that inner strength isn't a gift, it's a habit. Confidence is the side effect of living with intention. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Thomas, soft-spoken, thoughtful, always second-guessing himself. He wanted to lead, to speak up in meetings, to feel grounded in conversations that mattered. But every time the spotlight turned toward him, his voice shrank. He said, "I just don't feel like the confident type." And I told him something simple: you don't need to feel confident to act with strength. But if you act with strength consistently, confidence will follow you. So we started small. One sentence spoken per day, one question asked, even if his hands shook. One moment of stillness before reacting. Not perfect, just present. After a few weeks, his voice changed, not louder, but steadier. Because what changed wasn't just his voice, it was his relationship to himself. The Stoics teach us, we become what we repeatedly do. If you want confidence, don't chase the feeling, chase the practice. Show up, repeat. That's where self-trust is planted. Confidence isn't about never doubting. It's about moving through doubt until it no longer drives the wheel. Think of it like training a muscle. You don't lift once and expect strength. You lift consistently. Some days it's heavy, some days it's light, but you keep lifting. Eventually, strength becomes something you carry, even when life gets heavy. Now here's what most people miss. True confidence doesn't look like ego. It doesn't shout. It doesn't dominate. It's quiet, rooted. It allows others to speak. It listens without needing to interrupt. It walks into a room without needing to prove anything, because it knows value isn't always visible. And confidence doesn't need applause to be real. You build that kind of confidence when you do what matters, even when it's uncomfortable. When you keep promises to yourself, even when no one's watching. Like writing when it's hard, speaking when your voice trembles, choosing restraint over reaction. These are small victories, but they compound. Over time, they become your identity. That's the gift of discipline. It gives birth to confidence, not by magic, but by proof. By living in a way that whispers to yourself, I can count on me. So if you're still waiting for the perfect moment, stop. You don't need more time. You need one small act of courage. Right now. Say the thing. Ask the question. Stand up. Even if your legs shake, do it again tomorrow. And again the next day. Because confidence doesn't arrive, it accumulates. And the most powerful version of you isn't waiting at the end of a transformation. It's already inside you, waiting for proof that it's safe to come forward. So, go, live today as a quiet vote for the person you're becoming. And if your hands still tremble, let them tremble, but act anyway. Because real confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's walking with fear, and not letting it stop you. And here's the thing, you don't have to wait for a big stage to build that kind of confidence. In fact, the best place to start is closer than you think. In Chapter 11, we'll explore why familiar, everyday conversations might be the most powerful training ground you'll ever have. Chapter 3, begin with familiar conversations. Practice on life's everyday stage. When we think of becoming a better speaker, we picture stages, microphones, eyes staring back at us. We imagine spotlights and high-pressure moments. But here's the truth. Your greatest training ground is not a stage at all. It's the dinner table, the quiet coffee shop, the walk with your partner, the small talk with your child. You don't need an audience to practice speaking with clarity. You need a real moment with someone willing to listen. The Stoics believed that philosophy wasn't just for books or debates. It was for life. It was to be practiced in the ordinary, because that's where the extraordinary is tested. Speaking is no different. You don't become articulate in front of a crowd if you've never practiced being present in your daily conversations. I want you to imagine this. You're sitting with a friend. They share something vulnerable. You feel the urge to fix it, to advise, to respond wisely. But instead, you pause, you breathe, and you say something clear. simple and kind, something that lands. That quiet moment is your practice. That's where your voice is shaped. That's where your listening is refined. That's where your presence becomes powerful. The best public speakers are first great private communicators. They learn to speak from a grounded place, not to perform, but to connect, not to impress, but to understand. I once worked with a woman named Claire. She dreamed of giving keynotes at conferences, but every time she practiced, she froze, intimidated by the pressure to sound polished. So I gave her an unusual assignment. Don't write a speech, have one meaningful conversation each day, at the grocery store, with your sister, with your barista. She thought I was joking, but she tried. One day, she told me. I asked my neighbor how she was doing, and actually waited for the answer. She smiled, she opened up, I listened, and then I responded, not perfectly, but from my heart. That's when Claire's speaking began to change. Her confidence wasn't built in spotlights. It was built in the warmth of human moments. The Stoics remind us, we train not for applause, but for life. Not for performance, but for presence. So if you want to get better at speaking, don't wait for the stage. Speak here, now, in the small conversations. Notice your tone. Notice when you interrupt, avoid, or hide. Then, do better. Bit by bit, ask deeper questions, answer more honestly, pause more often. Choose words not just to fill space, but to make space. Because every conversation, no matter how brief, is a rehearsal for something greater. The kind of person you're becoming. This kind of practice doesn't look like practice. It's not flashy, it's not dramatic, but it builds the foundation for every high-stakes moment to come. You don't need to conquer the world in one speech. You just need to notice the world in one conversation. That's where your voice begins to change, not in volume, but in depth, not in cleverness, but in courage. So next time you sit across from someone, a friend, a stranger, a loved one, see it not as small talk, but as training. Ask with intention, listen with compassion, respond with care. You're not waiting to be ready. You're already becoming ready, conversation by conversation. Because here's the thing, these small, ordinary exchanges, they are stepping stones on a much longer road. In Chapter 12, we'll explore why clear communication is not a talent you're born with, but a journey you walk, one step at a time. Chapter 4. Clear communication is a journey, not a talent. Have you ever looked at someone who speaks clearly, confidently, calmly, and thought, I could never do that. It's just not who I am. You're not alone. Many people believe that being articulate, being a great communicator, is a talent, something you're born with, a gift reserved for the chosen few. But that belief is a lie, and it keeps too many people silent when they actually have something valuable to say. Here's the truth. Clear communication is not a gift. It is a path paved with practice, intention, and a willingness to grow. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's not about sounding impressive. It's about speaking from a place of clarity and truth. The Stoics taught that all virtue begins with self-awareness, and communication real, grounded communication is a reflection of that awareness. The words you choose, the pauses you take, the ability to respond, not react, these don't come from luck. They come from deliberate living. I want you to imagine this. Someone stumbles over their words, pauses awkwardly, and says something they wish they could take back. Now imagine them again 3 months later. They've been journaling every morning, practicing speaking aloud, asking better questions in conversations, listening more than they talk, writing, rewriting, reading. They didn't change who they were. They simply chose to start. Now their thoughts have structure. Their words have weight. Their presence feels calmer, stronger. Not because of a quick fix, but because they committed to the path. This is the truth. Every great communicator you admire walked it. They didn't wake up articulate. They practiced in silence. They failed. They learned. They refined. It's tempting to say, they're just good at this, while telling yourself, I'm not that type of person. But there is no type. There's only the choice to train your mind, to slow down, to speak with intention, to value meaning over noise. Here's what the Stoics would say. You're not responsible for being perfect with your words. You're responsible for trying, for showing up, for adjusting. There's a quiet power in realizing this. Every time you speak clearly, you're not just communicating, you're building yourself. You're aligning your inner life with your outer expression, and over time, people notice. They lean in when you speak, not because you're loud, but because your words come from a place of thoughtfulness and truth. So if today you feel clumsy with words, if your thoughts feel messy, if you struggle to say what you really mean, don't give up. This path belongs to you too. You don't need to be born gifted, you just need to begin. Speak a little more clearly today than you did yesterday. Pause before reacting. Replace filler with silence. Listen not just to others, but to yourself. And over time, you'll change. Your speech will reflect a calmer mind, a deeper understanding, and earned wisdom. Not because you were lucky, but because you were willing. And in the end, what people hear most is not your vocabulary, not your speed, not even your voice. What they hear is who you've become. And if you're wondering where this journey truly begins, it starts before the words even leave your mouth. In Chapter 13, we'll explore why clarity in speech is impossible without first bringing order to the mind. Chapter 5, clarity begins with an ordered mind. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried to explain something important, and halfway through, you realize you've lost your train of thought? You circle around your point, repeat yourself, feel the words blur together, even though the idea in your mind felt so clear. It's frustrating, isn't it? Like your thoughts are a river, but the words come out like broken branches in the current. Here's the truth. It's not your mouth that needs fixing. It's your mind that needs cleaning. Because clarity doesn't begin with speech. It begins with a mind that's been put in order. The Stoics believed that a calm mind leads to calm action. And when your inner world is aligned, your outer world reflects that same balance. Speech, like action, is the echo of thought. If your thoughts are tangled, your words will be too. But when they're organized, your communication becomes smooth, powerful, effortless. I once spoke to a man named Mark, a brilliant lawyer in his 50s, but constantly misunderstood by his clients. He told me, "I know what I want to say, I just can't say it clearly." When I asked about his routine, he admitted, "My mind feels like tabs on a browser, 20 open, none closed." Sound familiar? Most people walk around with overcrowded minds, to-do lists, past conversations, future anxieties, all looping in the background. And then we expect ourselves to speak with clarity. It's like expecting a cluttered room to feel peaceful. You cannot speak clearly if you cannot think clearly. And you cannot think clearly without cleaning your inner space. So where do you start? By noticing the clutter, the mental noise, the emotional static. The Stoics called this the discipline of perception. They practiced daily self-reflection, not as a ritual, but as a reset. Before a conversation, ask yourself, what do I really want to say? What matters here? What's just noise? Even better, write it down. Writing is a broom for the brain. It reveals what's essential and what's just swirling dust. And once your thoughts are in order, your words carry precision. No more over-explaining, no more backtracking. Just presence, just impact. Imagine walking into a room. Someone asks your opinion, you take a beat and respond simply, directly, intentionally. Not with many words, but with the right ones. That's the power of a mind in order. Now, let's be clear. A clean mind doesn't mean an empty mind. It means a structured one. A mind that knows what's important, what's background noise, what deserves to be said, and what's better left in silence. Not every thought needs a voice. Not every emotion needs to be explained. Some things are meant to be felt, understood, and let go. Clarity isn't just about communication. It's about self-respect. It's a decision to not waste your own time or someone else's. And the more you practice organizing your thoughts, simplifying your speech, pausing before you speak, the more powerful your presence becomes. Because clarity is not loud. It's quiet confidence. It's the reflection of a mind with nothing to prove and everything to give. If you want to speak more clearly, start where it truly begins. In the way you think, in the way you filter, in the way you choose not just what to say, but what to leave behind. When you do that, your words won't just inform. They'll land, they'll connect, they'll resonate. Not because you've said more, but because you've said what truly matters. Have you noticed? Confidence doesn't arrive one morning like a sudden gift. It's built quietly through the choices you make when no one's watching, through each time you listen without interrupting, through every moment you choose to be fully present instead of trying to be impressive. That's confidence rooted in action. That's listening without ego. That's presence without performance. The Stoics once said, "Don't waste time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one." And in a world addicted to volume, you'll find calm is the most persuasive voice. Silence, used well, is lasting influence. And intention is your most powerful message. You don't need a stage to refine your voice. You just need to speak truthfully in the everyday moments. Because every time you choose presence over performance, you're quietly becoming the person others remember. So, if you're walking this path toward inner clarity, intentional speech, and unshakable confidence, stay with us. Subscribe for more videos that train your thinking, deepen your presence, and elevate your words. You're not walking this path alone. You may begin in silence, but you'll be remembered for your depth.